loud every day what a good job you're doing. All right, now that we've got some practical things that we can actually do today to start that shift and to start speaking better about ourselves, hyping ourselves up, let's couple that with my 5 tips on how to change the way you speak about yourself. Okay, so if you find yourself saying low-grade digs on yourself when you're talking to others or just internally in your head, this is so important. Because you're not going to get good at self-hype. You're not going to get good at promoting yourself if you're stuck in that negative talk about yourself internally. And sometimes that negative self-talk, it's unconscious. So we have to first uncover it and then change it. So number 1, you've got to recognize it. You've got to start spotting when you're speaking negatively about yourself internally and externally, all right? Even if you're in mid-sentence and you're digging on yourself, even if just a low-grade shot, I want you to flip it. Number 2, I want you to get good at turning it back around by complimenting yourself right when you catch it. Even practicing saying the word stop out loud just to help train your brain. You know, we need to do that more and more as we're getting more overwhelmed with intake of social media and interaction, and as the world's opening back up, we have to get better at stopping ourselves and pausing and flipping it. So that might look like, yeah, I was really overwhelmed at work today. I can't believe I freaking emailed everybody. Stop. I made a mistake when I emailed, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm actually doing really good, and I'm handling my job with a lot of grace and class right now. You see how we stop it in the middle of it and we flip it around? Because so easily we're on autopilot talking negatively about ourselves. We're so good at finding the faults and the critical points of where we've made mistakes. Our brain is so in tune with where did you fuck up, and it's so unnatural to think about what went well. What are we doing right? What have we accomplished? What thing did we do that we didn't even recognize we did that maybe a year ago we were really, really striving for? And so that's so important when we're learning to change the way we talk about ourselves internally and most importantly, externally. Now, number 3, we've got to stop diminishing ourselves. And this looks like phrases like, I'm just a whatever, barista. I'm just a paralegal. I'm, it's no big deal. I'm just learning how to play softball, something like that. So saying I'm just and then diminishing whatever it is you identify yourself as, or saying, oh, it's no big deal. Or saying things like, oh, it's not all that. It's not that. Or I could still do X, Y, Z better. I've got a lot further to go. This diminishing ourselves is low-grade digs that is going to reinforce that negative self-talk. So if this is a real hard thing for you to get through, if negative self-talk and negative self-image is something you're really battling on, just work on one thing, and that is stop diminishing yourself. Stop bashing yourself. There's a lot of other things outside of you that can do it for you. You don't need to be helping that train along. You get me? You feel me? All right. Number 4. This brings me to number 4, which is stop placing so much importance on what others think. And how this helps you speak better about yourself is when you really let go of other people's opinions of you, you start to have a higher regard for yourself, and you start to see yourself as doing all right, as doing well, in fact. Because I promise you, you'll either figure this out through age or experience, but what other people think about you is none of your fucking business. It does not belong in your head. That should not be taking up space. Believe me, people are way too busy being self-critical to really think that badly about you. And if they do, and they're expressing that, thank God, that gives you the red flag to know this person is not for me. And believe me, there is less and less room in your life for those kinds of people that are gossipy, negative, bringing you down, criticizing you, finding a problem for every solution, knocking down all your new ideas. You do not need that in your life. You don't have to put up with it or accept it anymore. And last but not least, I want us to really start cleaning up the shitty thoughts that you have about yourself. And what that means is, when you're really in the low, low, dark place, and you're really kicking your own ass, and you're really bringing yourself down, and you're really trying to reinforce whatever negative pattern was put there by someone else or is reinforced by something going on in your life, when you're down there, I want you to try as hard as you can to choose a better thought about yourself. Like, you're still going to have all the ugly thoughts about yourself. You can't turn that off, right? It's not an instant. There's no meds, there's not enough weed or drink on the planet to make that go away. So you're just going to have to practice interrupting those shitty thoughts and then get good at finding the next best thought. And this is what that looks like. You're in a negative, dark place and you're like, oh my God, I freaking did it again. I went out with this person I said I wasn't going to go out with, and I'm a horrible person because I have no boundaries. The next best thing you can say is, at least I recognized it this time. At least I'm looking at this behavior. That's the next best thought you can have. And it takes a little practice. I'm gonna tell you, it's going to take a little bit of work. But it is the fastest way to switch your thinking from how horrible you are, all the bad things you've done, and get you back to a place where you could actually feel better about yourself. Number 2, I want you to start receiving compliments. This is such a huge thing, and this is so simple. I don't know why people don't understand this concept. If I took the time to give you a compliment, it's not because I want something from you or I'm trying to blow sunshine up your skirt. I am literally thinking about something good that you did and I want to compliment you. So receive it. And if you have a really hard time, like they're uncomfortable, you don't believe them, it sounds like garbage and gook to you, I want you to write them down every single time and collect them somehow. Do it in a journal, a scrap of paper, a note on your phone, however you need to do it. And start collecting these compliments. Write them down so when you are in that bad place and you don't know what the next best thought of yourself is, you can go to your little journal, you can go to the note on your phone, you can pull it up out of a scrap of paper you wrote and put in a little bowl, pull it out and read it. Because you are missing the opportunities right in front of you to change that negative self-talk. That thing that is blocking you from promoting yourself, from really speaking positively about yourself, from changing your whole life. You're just not seeing it. So writing it down and taking the time to do these little exercises is what's going to help you actually see it and be able to start to recognize, like, hey, maybe you're not such a piece of shit. Hey, maybe you're human and you're just making a mistake. Hey, maybe you're learning something new and you need to give yourself a little bit of leeway. Number 3, you've got to surround yourself with you. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this, but I think you could probably figure this out. I used to live in this house. I was renting a room from these girls, and the main level of the house was all their stuff, and I had a bedroom upstairs. And nowhere in the house was any of my art, any pictures of my family. No dishes of mine existed there. My laundry was, in the dryer, out the dryer as fast as it could. There was no trace that I lived there. And during that time, I felt the most disconnected from myself. So it's extremely important that your physical environment that you are in reflects you. Put up the art that you like to look at. Have those good quotes out and about. Have your family pictures around you. Surround yourself with things that mean you, that you like. You are this individual expression of amazing creativity, and you should be surrounded by it so that you can connect to it and appreciate it. I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up listening to Pearl Jam, Metallica, Soundgarden, all the grunge. And while it's outdated and considered, completely out of style, out of touch, I still love it. And I surround myself with it because it's something I appreciate about myself. And that's going to help you change that inner dialogue to where you're going to start to see you're not such a piece of shit. There are really good, amazing, creative qualities about you, and you want to surround yourself with you so that you can remember that. Number 4, you need to practice acknowledging your greatness. Practice this. Every time you solve a problem, every time you support a friend, every time you do the right thing, even when nobody's looking, I want you to acknowledge your greatness. I want you to right now, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, I want you to think of one thing about yourself that means greatness. What are you great at? Not just good or you've dabbled or you kind of like this thing. What is something that you really love, that you're really passionate, something that you do that nobody else can do? I know that if you take the time and really think about it, that you can find one thing that you are truly great at. One thing, one aspect of your personality, one part of your life experience that is amazing, that is unique, and that has something great about it. You can find that one thing. You just have to start looking at yourself differently. And last but not least, in my 5 ways that you can learn to talk better about yourself and think better about yourself is you're gonna have to learn to accept your flaws. I've talked about this before in the show, but this very basic concept is life-changing, and it has everything to do with self-care. When you are giving yourself whatever it is you need, whether it's a break, whether it's a pedicure, whether it's a delicious meal prepared by a fancy chef, whatever it is that you need for self-care, if it's the Church of the Forest, if it's, a big burger and some fries, whatever it is, I want you to remember that every flaw that you have, everything you think you are bad at or that is some kind of deficiency, every one of those unique traits and qualities is an opportunity for you to be better. Which means if you have a crappy self-image, if you think of yourself in a shitty way, that means you have exponentially an amount of personal traits that you can improve upon and love on, and it can make you a whole new person. When you become friends with the flaw, when you become friends with the thing that you think makes you a bad person, when you can accept these things about yourself, these deficiencies, and learn from them and love them, you can decide if they're a part of your personality or if they need to be, looked at, examined, and moved on from. This is so integral, my friends, to self-care. Being able to change the way you think about yourself, the conversation you have about yourself, the way that you share yourself with the world, this will tell the story of you. This is the difference between your life being good and in the flow and happy and free, or being stuck and depressed and not able to move out